Um, okay. Hello everybody. How are you? How are you doing? How are you feeling? Today we shall continue our seminars. Today we shall have the second seminar from Theater Grammar of English. And with you, Jamaat Rashid. Okay. Today we shall discuss language and speech. So main distinctions between language and speech. Main units of language and speech, how they are formed, how they function together. So you have to keep in mind that language and speech is the main basic unit of not only grammar but also the whole linguistics. The main unit of linguistics, I can say without any hesitation. So in order to research grammar, we have to know the basic notion of language and speech. So let's go. I'll try to explain this theme by means of presentations. Okay. So let's start from our plan. The plan is as follows: language and speech levels, primary and secondary levels, units of levels, the difference between language and speech. The distinction between language and speech. First of all, the distinction between language and speech was made by Ferdinand de Saussure, the Swiss scholar, usually credited with establishing principles of modern linguistics. Language is a collective body of knowledge. It's a set of basic elements, but these elements can form a great variety of combinations. In fact, the number of these combinations is endless. Speech is closely connected with language, as it is the result of using the language, the result of a definite act of speaking. Speech is individual, personal, while language is common for all individuals. To illustrate the difference between language and speech, let's compare a definite game of chess and a set of rules how to play chess. So, if you compare it to game of chess, we can say that game of chess is if we imagine game of chess as a language, then set of rules is a speech. So it's a good comparison, I think. Language is opposed to speech, and accordingly, language units are opposed to speech units. The language unit phoneme is opposed to the speech unit sound. The language unit is phoneme, speech unit is sound. There is also one good comparison. Phoneme can sound differently in speech. So the sentence is opposed to the utterance. The text is opposed to the discourse. The sentence is the unit of language. Utterance is the unit of speech. Text is the unit of language. It is opposite to the discourse. Okay, continue. Language speech is divided to certain strata of layers. Language layers: basic, primary, and non-basic, secondary. If you remember, we discussed these layers in our previous lessons. If a level has its own unit, then this level is qualified as basic or primary. If a level doesn't have a unit of its own, then it's a non-basic or secondary level. Hierarchy. Syntax major mainly deals with text. Syntax minor deals with sentence, lexicology, lexeme or lex, and morphology deals with morpheme, morph. Phonology and phonetics, both of them deal with phoneme or thought. Non-basic or secondary level is one that has no unit of its own. For example, stylex can be said to be non-basic secondary because this level has no its own unit. In order to achieve this aim, it makes wide use of the units of primary basic levels. The stylistic studies the expressive means and stylistic devices of language. The same can be said about the interpretation and other parts of linguistics. The main distinction between language and speech is in the following. Language is abstract and speech is concrete. As we said in our introductory slide, language is common, general, for all the bearers, while speech is individual. So the third rule, language is stable, less changeable, while speech tends to change. The fourth rule, language is a closed system. Its units are limited, while speech tends to be openness and endless. Language levels are emic levels. So if I say language levels, I mean emic levels. Spiritual levels are ethic levels. You have to keep it in mind. Phonemes, when pronounced in concrete speech, vary from person to person, according to how he has got used to pronounce this or that sound. In linguistic theory, it is explained by the term idiolect, that is, individual dialect. There may be positional changes depending on the sounds that precede and follow the sound that we are interested in. The pronunciation of it may be different. Compare low and barrel. The sound L will be pronounced differently in these two words because the letter L in the first word is placed in the initial position, and in the second word it stands after the letter T. So we face light in the first word and dark version in the second case. These alternants are said to be in the complementary distribution, and they are called allophones, variants, options, or alternants of one phoneme. Thus, allophone is a variant of a phoneme. So now we come to morphological level. These are the levels of language and speech level. So this is the morphological level. The morphs that have different forms but identical in meanings are united into one morpheme and are called allomorphs. The morpheme of the past tense has at least three morphemes. They are t, d, ed. Examples: worked, phoned, and wanted. The variant of the morpheme depends on the preceding sound in the verb. Lexicological level. Lexicological level deals with words. So allolexes are lexes that have identical or similar meanings but different forms. Compare start, commence, begin. So these are the allolexes. To avoid confusion between morpheme and lexemes, it is very important to remember that morphemes are structural units, while lexemes are communicative units. Morphemes are built of phonemes, and they are used to build word lexemes. The lexemes take an immediate part in shaping the thoughts, that is, in building sentences. Besides, lexemes may consist of one or more morphemes. The lexeme tree consists of one morpheme, while the lexeme ungentlemanly consists of four morphemes. Ungentlemanly. Continue. Syntax minor and syntax major. Syntax minor deals with sentences. For example, John writes a letter. The letter is written by John. Since one and the same idea is expressed in two different forms, they are called allosentences. Some authors call them grammatical synonyms. In the same way, the level syntax major can be explained. The unit of this level is text, the highest level of language and speech. Syntax major represents both language and speech levels due to the absence of separate terms as well as text is used homogeneously for both language and speech units. Notions of system and structure. So, in order to understand language and speech levels, and research these things, we have to understand system and structure in linguistics. So, general characteristics of linguistic units. So, system and structure. basic notions of linguistic units. So this is the classification of language from the point of view of system and structure. For example, language is regarded as a system of elements or signs units such as sounds, words, etc. These elements have no value without each other. They depend on each other. They exist only in a system, and they are nothing without a system. System implies the characterization of a complex object as made up of separate parts, the system of sounds. Language is a structural system. Structure means hierarchical layering of parts constituting the whole. In the structure of language, there are four main structural levels: phonological, morphological, syntactical, and supersyntactical. The levels are represented by the corresponding level units. The phonological level is the lowest level. The phonological level unit is the phoneme, the distinctive unit. For example, bag, back. The morphological level has two level units. The morpheme, the lowest morpheme unit. For example, teach, teacher. The word, the main name, nominative unit of language. We shall discuss morpheme and word in our future lectures and seminars, and give detailed information about it. The syntactic level has two level units as well. The word group, the dependent syntactic unit, and the sentence, the main communicative unit. We shall also discuss these main two notions, word group and sentence, in our future lessons in the syntax part. The suprasyntactic level has the text as its level unit. Okay, all structural levels are subject matters of different levels of linguistic analysis. At different levels of analysis, we focus attention on different features of language. Generally speaking, the larger the units we deal with, the closer we get to the actuality of people's experience of language. To sum up, each level has its own system. Therefore, language is regarded as a system of systems. So you have to keep in mind, the language is a system of systems. So, language is part of linguistic system, while the language itself has its own system of units, as we said in our previous slides. The level units are built up in the same way, and that's why the units of a lower level serve the building material for the units of a higher level. The similarity and likeness of organization of linguistic units is called isomorphism. Okay. Any linguistic unit is a double entity. It unites a concept and a sound image. The two elements are intimately united, and each recalls the other. Accordingly, we distinguish the content side and the expression side. Demek mana kısmı hem de demek content yani o'zi ichiga olgan qism, content qismi. Buni o'zbek tilida endi o'z ichiga olgan qism deb aytamiz, lekin content deb tarjima qilinadi. Expression va ifoda contentni contentligicha tarjima qilinmaydi. Shuni e'tibor berish kerak. The forms of linguistic units bear no natural resemblance to their meaning. The link between them is a matter of convention, and conventions differ radically across language. Thus, the English word dog happens to denote a particular four-footed domesticated creature. The same creature that is denoted in Ukraine, in Uzbek, in Russian, but completely different forms. Neither forms look like a dog or sound like one. Now we have come to the theory of opposition, types of oppositions in morphology. General correlation of lingual forms by means of which a certain function is expressed. The correlator elements members of the operation must possess two types of features, common features and different features. Quality types of positions established in phonology. So they can be privative, gradual, and equivalent. By the number of members contrasted, oppositions were divided into binary and more than binary. So that's all for now. Um, so in order to do the tasks in seminar sections, you must learn these notions very intensively and do the task. That's all for now. Thank you. Goodbye.